Hello everybody, evidence for you here. So, I recorded a small portion of a hangout hosted by Evan Phillips, also known as NephilimFree. Why, you might ask, why subject you guys to yet another video listening to NephilimFree? Well, if you know anything about this history denier, you might have heard him complaining about never getting the chance to speak whenever he joins an atheist hangout. To prove to you he is no better himself, I give you this demonstration while debunking some of his claims as well. If you wonder why I only recorded 15 minutes from a 6-hour hangout, the answer is that I accidentally deleted the first recording, and I was kind of tired at 3:30 in the morning, so it was time for bed. 3 times I told Evan Phillips in the group chat in the hangout that I wanted to address the claims he made. Guess how many times he let me? It's easy to sound convincing if you're the only one who speaks, right, Nephi? First of all, I don't see any problems with finding dinosaur fossils in the Cretaceous period. Cretaceous is the last period of the Mesozoic era, which spanned from 250 to 65 million years ago. Second, about Tiktaalik, I can only say that I have spoken to Per Ahlberg about that fossil. He has examined it and does not agree with NephilimFree's assertions. Of course, Per Ahlberg is just a professor of evolutionary organismal biology and famous all over the world for his studies in tetrapods' first ascent on dry land. What does he know, right? Third, Evan Phillips' claims about huge prehistoric human fossils, so-called Nephilims, and the conspiracy theory that the Smithsonian Institution is hiding these biblical evidences is just laughable. I don't know else what to say about that. Enjoy, guys.
And came all the larger mammals, right? That's what we've been told for 100 years.
Yeah, so you can just call that, what, outdated information?
Well, okay, so what we find is, but here's the thing. If you were to go back to 1975 and tell a paleontologist that beavers coexisted with dinosaurs, he'd call you a crazy idiot creationist. That's what he would say. Because they couldn't possibly have existed, because they were not in the fossil record in the same time as the dinosaurs. And this fossil record is what demonstrates what period in time in history of the Earth those creatures lived. See, that is their evolutionary timeline, but it's being all torn to pieces by these fossil discoveries of mammals that had coexisted with dinosaurs. 432 species of mammal. That's a lot of mammals that coexisted with dinosaurs.
That's crazy.
Yeah, that is. What that does is, it doesn't just, now the evolutionists will gloss it over and say, well, we just update our theory. But really? So, okay, what you've been telling us for 50 years is wrong. Your idea about the geologic column, but when the fossils, where they're found in the Earth, is evidence that this creature existed at this time in history and not before and not after by any great measure of time. That makes a very great problem for that idea. See, so now if we apply that same truth, this discovery that's overthrowing these ideas, to all of the evolutionists' claims about the geologic column, what can we do with the fish idea? They say fish, many hundreds of millions of years ago, evolved into land-dwelling creatures, and then we have land-dwelling creatures with four-limbed creatures, tetrapods, come into existence after that. Really? What if we applied the same problem to that? Would we find also that land-dwelling creatures existed on the Earth prior to when they say maybe many millions of years, according to their belief about the geologic column, many millions of years prior to when they said that this transition from fish to land-dwelling took place? I'll bet you there's fossils in the fossil record that prove that's true. What you want to bet? In fact, we have such a thing. And there are fossil footprints of land-dwelling creatures in sediments that are claimed to be millions of years older than the fish that supposedly evolved into land-dwelling creatures. These transitional forms, they have fossil footprints of land-dwelling creatures, tetrapods, in sediments. Footprints, sediments, fossils. That's called I forgot the name of that kind of fossil. A relief fossil, I think. They are found in strata that are believed to be millions of years older than the evolution of fish into land-dwelling creatures. That's a problem for the evolutionists, isn't it? Well, what does that tell us about? What does that tell us about this idea of theirs, that at this particular time in the history of the Earth, because of what the geologic column shows us, that fish evolved into land-dwelling creatures, isn't it? Problem? Yeah, it's a problem.
Mm-hmm.
It's really a problem. It's a severe problem. Dr. Carl Wieland has also said this. Few are aware of the great number of mammal species found with dinosaurs. Paleontologists have found 432 species in the dinosaur layers, almost as many as the number of dinosaur species. Wow. That's incredible.
Hey, Neff.
Oh, yeah.
Can I ask you a question?
Please.
When does Bible study start?
Well, Bible study, this hangout's not about Bible study.
I think it should be more about Bible study than kicking this dead horse.
Well,
but I'm just kidding, though.
I got you. But we can always refer to it. And Scripture tells us that in 6 days God created the heavens and the earth and the seas and all that is in them. And this geologic column is supporting that. What the fossils we find in this earth do not demonstrate the evolutionary timeline. They do support the Genesis account of the creation of all these kinds of living things existed in the beginning. Now, the reason we find Cambrian fossils in the deep strata, very down near the bottom, is because they were coastal living creatures. These were creatures that lived in shallow seas. Right? That's why would we expect to find them lower in the strata? Well, because they're down low. They're on the coast. They're off the edge of the continents. That's where you're going to find them, where you're going to get buried, low. What about a creature that lived high in the fossil record, like a dinosaur? Well, you're not going to find him in the sea, right? Or are you? Guess what? Dinosaur fossils have been found in Cretaceous chalk. There's many of them. Now, chalk is supposedly created during the Cretaceous, before the dinosaurs existed.
Sorry.
That's an even bigger problem than the mammal fossils I've been speaking of. Cretaceous chalk, dinosaurs and birds found in Cretaceous chalk, which is a global strata, by the way. Evidence of the flood of Noah was a global event because it created all this massive amounts of chalk all over the earth. Chalk is countless trillions of coccolithophores, the tiny little bitty algae-like, not algae-like, but like diatoms. They're little bitty, they are diatoms. They're tiny little sea creatures that have this little silicate shell. And when they die, they sink to the floor, the ocean floor. And they build up, and evolutionists claim, at about a rate of about 1 to 2 centimeters per 1,000 years. That's the rate that chalk has always been forming on the Earth. But if that's true, how do you get a nearly complete fossils of fish, dinosaur fossils found in them? You get, there are crabs and lobsters. Can't happen, you see. That lobster fossil is not going to sit around for 150,000 years or 10,000 years waiting to be buried by enough chalk to seal it away from sea worms and scavengers, you see. So it was buried rapidly in massive amounts of chalk. And this explains why we have massive chalk formations like the cliffs of Dover on this earth, and they've got lobster and crab and fish and dinosaur fossils. So how do you get a dinosaur to exist in the Cretaceous chalk if the geologic column, according to evolutionists, is correct? Doesn't work.
Can I comment?
So, sure.
I saw an article that there's these evolutionists they're calling, I don't know if everyone in here is a creationist. Well, I am. I became a young Earth creationist. But they're saying that they found a 60 million year old fossilized fish in a rock. But if you really think about that, it takes less than 2 weeks for a fossil to come, and that's just an adaptation of a fish. It's still a fish. It's not like it's evolving or anything, because you don't see a fish that comes in with a leg or something,
Yeah, I mean, the inconsistencies are rife.
That isn't coherent. I'm sorry.
No, it's not. Well, the evolution theory is what's not coherent. It doesn't add up with what they believed, and they're constantly modifying it, pushing mammals further back, pushing dinosaurs further up, further back. They slippy slide everything. It might as well be just a bunch of slides. And you put a type of creature on a slide, and and we can slip this one down this way 40 million years and slip that one up this way 30 million. Well, if the theory is right, why do you have to modify it constantly? Nobody's arguing that science doesn't update. Of course it does. But remember, we're stuck with this evolutionist's timeline, this tree of life that they hold to, that Darwin put forth. That was Darwin's really great contribution to the evolution theory, to evolutionism, was two things. His idea that natural selection is what explained the diversification of life, and he wasn't the only one who came up with that idea. There was someone else who came up with it. It's arguably, possibly just before he did. He stole the idea, went to press with his book before the other guy could, and beat him to the draw on natural selection. The other is that there was a tree of life. That was Darwin's real claim to fame. If you ask me, but that all living things on this planet are branches of an original creature and over time, and we should find this in the geologic column. Ever since then, evolutionists, every time they dig up something, they proclaim it, oh, look, it supports Darwin. Look where we found it in the fossil record.
I'm sorry.
That's what they do. Every fossil they dig up, look, it supports Darwin's tree of life. But then what do they do with the ones that don't? They don't tell you about them. They don't put them in their TV programs.
Well, that's all I was going to ask about Tiktaalik, because I had them pushing it on me today, and I was like, it's a lobe-finned fish that couldn't walk, so...
Well, Tiktaalik is if you go to your Museum of Natural History, whatever city you live in, or the closest one to you, and you look in their fish tanks, you'll see fish that look almost identical to Tiktaalik. The biggest difference between them is the distance between their eyes. The modern ones have a much greater distance. Their eyes are farther apart than in Tiktaalik. Tiktaalik is a partial fossil. They never found the back end of it. They only have the front part. The problem with the Tiktaalik being a transition from land-dwelling ocean to land-dwelling creature is this. Its shoulder girdle was dermal, not endochondral, which means it wasn't attached to its spine with cartilage and tendon and muscle. So it was not able to support its weight out of water. It did not have weight-bearing structures. It was not able to support its weight out of water with those fins any more than any other lobe-finned fish or other fish that exist today, like a catfish or a seal cat. So it doesn't demonstrate any kind of transition. It has a particular shape, and this shape and a visual appearance is what the evolutionists bases their whole belief that the creature was a transitional form of. That's what they base it on. And the fact that its neck, it has, where at the base of its skull appears to be a head that is more able to spin side to side than in most fish.
Yeah.
But those two things, a visual appearance and shape, which fits the idea in their mind and their imagination of, well, what would that creature look like if it was evolving from land, fish to land? Oh, I see it in my head. I see it. And they dig up a fossil that looks like that in their head. Oh, there it is.
Yeah.
There it is.
That's how it works. There it is.
I learned that it's neither an amphibian or a reptile. Like you said, it had no weight-bearing structures. The closest animal today resembling it is an alligator gar, and just a bunch of other stuff. Like, weren't land-walking animals around before before Tiktaalik?
Apparently so, because they found fish. They found tetrapod footprints, fossil tetrapod footprints, 20 million years older than Tiktaalik. in the fossil record, approximately 20 million.
Mammals or like lizards?
Probably reptile looking footprints. Yeah, like lizard type, something similar to a lizard maybe.
Yeah, I was talking to a certain somebody today. You probably know him, and he's been in your room a couple times. But yeah, he's one of those theistic evolutionists that seems to think that Tiktaalik is still evidence for evolution. Tried to correct him, but he wouldn't listen.
Yeah. Well, it happens constantly. Their theory is constantly thrown upside down by new discoveries continuously. And let me close that link. I'll show you something else. Very interesting. Let's see if I can screen share this with you. Well, Google doesn't want to hang out. Doesn't want to.
Nephilim, can I ask a question?
Sure.
I've heard that they're, the giant humans, they undercover under their archaeological thing.
Uh-huh.
I heard that they stock the giants in Canada. Is that true?
I couldn't hear what you said. You were cutting in and out. Could you repeat that?
Yeah, your microphone's a little low.
Yeah. It says something about giants in Canada.
I was saying, like, do you remember the giants they discovered in archaeological digs of the giant Nephilim that are like, pretty tall, they're like 9 feet. I heard that.
Well, you've heard that there's a what?
I heard that they have them probably in Canada.
Oh, I haven't heard anything about giant human fossils found in Canada.
They store them there because whenever the Smithsonian gets their hands on them.
Okay. Well, there have been reported in the past many examples of men, a number of men that were of tremendous size. The Paiute Indians have legend of them, and so the Inuit do, and across the world, of course. And
The Bible.
The Smithsonian Institute seems to show up on the scene whenever this takes place, and the fossils are never heard from again. That's the pattern. It's been reported so in the newspapers in the past. I queried a paleontologist at a university a museum in New Mexico, who admitted to me in an email. I made a video of it. It's on my YouTube channel, where he admitted to me that they had fossil human skulls that were abnormally huge, large in size, giant human skulls in their possession